Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Octagon alongside Arlington Cook IV, Mario Pedinera in the back in the control room working on the cameras. I'm Brennan Capozzi. Thank you for joining us. We are going to talk about the long-awaited return of John Bones Jones on Saturday, March 4th, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, taking place at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Wow, this is a fight that has been years in the making just because we have not seen John Jones before the pandemic. He vacated his light heavyweight title. We're going to talk about John Jones. We're going to talk about the champion Valentina Shevchenko of the women's flyweight division, with those two being crucial fights for the future of their respective divisions in the UFC. So let's jump into the co-main event. Valentina Shevchenko is defending, I think, for her eighth or ninth time. She's been wiping out this division against newcomer Alexa Grasso. Arlington, what do you think about another fight for Shevchenko to continue to her flyweight legacy?
When it comes to Valentina, at this point, it's who can beat her. And if no one can, then I guess you got to make her an Amanda again.
Mm-hmm.
Because at this point, Amanda's the only one that you would view as a better female fighter than she is. Because she's been so dominant throughout this stretch.
Yeah, she has been absolutely dominant. I'm looking at the rankings right now. She beat the number one ranked Talia Santos. She beat Jessica Andrade. She beat Caitlin Chukagian. Obviously, she's facing Grasso. She beat Lauren Murphy at number 6. She's beaten Jennifer Maia. The list just goes on and on and on. This is a fighter that is going to go down as one of the best female fighters of all time, and as you said,
And one of the best fighters.
and one of the best fighters too. You know, she has just wiped out the division. You know, she went to face Amanda Nunes twice, lost both of those fights. The UFC made flyweight their own division, and she has just dominated the ranks. I could see a situation if Zhang Weili moves up to fight Shevchenko for the flyweight belt. That would be, I think like those are super fights that fans really want to see, you know, because when we kind of look at, like, obviously we'll talk about the Charlotte division right now with Zhang Weili, the queen of the 115 pounders. She's kind of really wiped out all of these female fighters too. So is there a scenario to which if Shevchenko wins her next title bout, you see her possibly fighting another one of these champions?
I believe so. I don't believe Shevchenko wins and then she fights another new upcoming person that we don't know. Knowing Dana in the UFC, they'll either make an Amanda 3 or, like you just stated, which kind of excited me, if Wei Lee decides to move up. That's an exciting fight.
Oh, I definitely think that is a fight to make. Obviously, I need to see what's going to go on with Wei Lee next. Mario, what do you think about that possibility, you know, of Shevchenko kind of, you know, going out of her territory a little bit and facing new females in other divisions?
I think at this point, it's like fighters like her, you get to a point where you have nothing else to do in your division. It's kind of like you've lapped everyone already, and there's no one, like there's no bigger fight in your division than moving up to someone else. Because I think that's what's going to happen next. I think that's the path that she's headed on now. So, depending on what happens with the strawweight division, I think she's going to fight whoever has that belt.
And we're not going to show disrespect here to Grasso, who's the next contender, number 5 ranking. She's won her last 3 fights. So she's been very impressive as well. But I think that's just the dominance of Shevchenko. We kind of said this with Amanda Nunes in the past, like, who is gonna beat her? You know, obviously Juliana Pena got it done in December a couple years ago, but you know, it's always that narrative of who is next. And you know, when I'm looking at this list, I don't know if anyone really sticks out to me. Even Jessica Andrade, who's probably one of the greatest women fighters of all time, she couldn't even get it done against Shevchenko. So you really have to start thinking of what is next. You know, like, she's been in this division for several years now. Do you think that it would be a right move to go up and face someone like an Amanda Nunes?
I do believe so, because like you just stated, what is next? So her legacy is already cemented in stone, but there is one woman who has always got her best and who is renowned as the one of the greatest fighters of all time and the greatest female fighter
Yeah.
of all time.
I
So if you- so if you're-
definitely, that's something
makes sense.
I definitely agree with that. We are going to move from the probably one of the best female fighters of all time to probably the best fighter to ever step into the UFC octagon. John Jones makes his long awaited return to the UFC, vacated his belt in 2019 at the light heavyweight division. He is moving up to the heavyweight division to take on the number one contender, Cyril Gane, to make a brand new UFC World Heavyweight Champion on March 4th in Las Vegas. Mario, I'm going to start with you. What was your initial reaction to when this fight was announced?
When it was first announced, because obviously there were talks about him, John Jones fighting Ngannou for so long, and like then when they switched it to Gane, it's like, oh, is it gonna happen? Is it not? But now that we're officially getting like John Jones at heavyweight, that's gonna be scary to see. Like if he wins this fight, I don't know who's gonna like obviously he was gonna fight Stipe as like a tune-up fight. That would probably be his next fight, but I don't think like people are just not gonna want to fight John Jones in that division.
Yeah.
Like, it's, like that's gonna be an insane fight.
If we thought John Jones was scary at 205, imagine him, at 230, 240 possibly.
The only thing that worries me about, because I feel like John Jones would win. The only thing that makes me worried about that is his last few fights at light heavyweight. They weren't that clean. Like he arguably could have lost, and he was in a lot of trouble in a lot of those fights. He got touched up.
Yeah.
And he has never, again, like moving up a weight division is a lot, and especially going from 205 to now where the people are going to be like 265, and he's not going to be as big as Gane's going to be.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a real challenge for him, but if anyone's going to be able to do that, it's definitely going to be John Jones.
Oh, yeah.
So
And
I just want to see what happens.
this, I think, will be a possible fight of the year candidate. Let's kind of talk about Cyril Gane in the sense, because everyone is hyping up John Jones, but we need to remember Cyril Gane was an interim champion at one point. He had a very impressive fight against Ngannou that went the distance. How should we look at this stance of the fight in terms of Cyril Gane and what he can bring to the table of beating John Jones in his debut?
I do believe this is the more dangerous fight that John could have had. I feel like Ngannou going into that fight is more of Ngannou can knock John out if he lands that hit. But if this goes the distance, Gane can fight. He does have stand-up game. He does have kicking skills. He does have the reach to that point and would be a little heavier. So he definitely can stand in there with John for 5 rounds.
Yeah. What do you think about, I'll ask you this too, Mario. What do we just think about the way that this fight was even brought about in terms of we all expected it to be Francis Ngannou versus John Jones, but obviously, Francis left the UFC with some contract disagreements. What are your guys' reaction to that whole Ngannou situation? Because if this fight between John Jones and Francis Ngannou was made, it would have 1,000% been the most anticipated fight in the history of mixed martial arts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely disappointed by that Ngannou's now out of the UFC. I don't know, like, do you think that there's any chance of him coming back if maybe they can renegotiate a different deal or anything?
I don't believe so, only because Dana's been negotiating with him for the last 2 years. So he tried everything he could to make this fight happen because Dana is very aware that this would have been the biggest fight in UFC history.
I think Dana White wanted to, get the job done. I think that he was hoping that some sort of deal could be made with Francis Ngannou, but it's obviously, it's just a disappointment when we look at what this fight could have brought. But we also need to remember that there's a lot of heavyweight contenders that are still in line after this fight upcoming in March. We got Sergey Pavlovich, who just had a very impressive win over Derek Lewis. Curtis Blades is someone that's on the radar. Tai Tuivasa has really had an upbringing the last couple of years. But I want to mention Stipe Miocic, the former, and most people will say the greatest heavyweight champion of all time. Do you think that he's the next man in line for a title shot?
He has to be. I mean, I feel like regardless of who wins, obviously everybody wants to see John versus Stipe. But if Gane is good enough to beat John, then you'll definitely probably see him versus Stipe sometime in the summer.
What do you think, Mario?
Yeah, I think you have to give it to Stipe. But I was just gonna ask again, if Ngannou and John Jones did happen, what would you think of it? How do you think that would go?
Truthfully, I think Ngannou could. There's only one way Ngannou could beat him, and that's by landing the shot.
Mm-hmm.
And if he didn't land that shot, I don't think Ngannou can outfight John. I don't think anybody can outfight John.
Mm-hmm. I think that Ngannou, obviously, he was coming off that ACL surgery, that which really put his title hopes in jeopardy against Cyril Gane. We didn't know how that would affect him. I think I think John Jones, best fighter on the planet. I think that he would have had the upper hand. But it is going to be interesting to see how he does at a new division. What do you expect from John Jones? We just saw Alexander Volkanovski. He took Islam Makhachev to the distance. What is your opinion on someone like a John Jones making that jump from light heavyweight to heavyweight?
Well, I think one of the big obstacles that he's going to go into isn't necessarily the jump, but it's more that he hasn't fought in 3 years. So having that type of layoff, you're not sure what kind of rust is going to be established there. But it is interesting to see John fight without having to cut weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mario, what do you think about, in terms of Cyril Gane? He's not gaining more weight. He's kind of maintaining his weight. Do you think that even though we say John Jones is the best fighter of all time, do you think that, Gane has a little bit of an advantage in this fight? Because as we see right here and the betting odds, John Jones is a minus 150 favorite, and Cyril Gane's at plus 130. So it's kind of close to what the bettors are saying. But do you think that, regardless of what the betting says, that we should still give respect to Cyril Gane just because he has been fighting at this division for a very long time?
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, obviously, John Jones has been out of it for a long time, and Gane, he's the number one contender for a reason. He's not. This isn't gonna be this is gonna be John Jones's toughest fight in a while, possibly ever, because he's never. I mean, he's never lost a fight really. He has a loss on his record, but he's never lost a fight. So, I think you have to give Gane respect, but I think you have to. I think because John's been away for a while, I think people forgot how great he is, and he's definitely not going to be unprepared. He hasn't fought in a while, but he's definitely going to be. He's going to make sure that he's there's not that much rust to get off. He's stayed active. He's stayed healthy, obviously. So as long as he doesn't get into any trouble outside of the ring, I think he could definitely win this fight. This is a fight he could definitely win.
Absolutely. So as we just finished, and I'm really excited to talk about the ending of UFC 285 and what is going to happen next in the heavyweight division. I see Shevchenko defending her title in the flyweight division as well. We will see if her legacy continues then. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of Inside the Octagon for UFC 285. Mario Pedinera, Arlington Cook IV. I'm Bernie Capuzzi. See you later, and we'll talk to you guys when we do a recap of UFC 285. Thank you.